The rumble of distant artillery echoed off the hillsides, a grim reminder that peace was a distant memory. It was July 1944, and the invasion of Normandy had opened the West Front, but the fight was far from over. Somewhere in the hedgerows of Normandy, a small unit of American soldiers was twilight-bound on a mission that would test their mettle and perhaps their very souls. Private James "Jimmy" Dawson crouched behind a thick hedgerow, his breath shallow and quick as he peered through the foliage. The scent of damp earth mixed with the acrid stench of gunpowder permeated the air, a bitter reminder of the toll war had taken. Just days earlier, he had been a mere boy, dreaming of the open skies in Pennsylvania, blissfully unaware of the horrors that awaited on foreign soil. Now, at the tender age of 19, he was soaked in fear and drenched in combat experience beyond anyone's imagination. "Here we go again," he muttered to himself, clutching his M1 Garand rifle as he underwent another round of what felt like survival in a living nightmare. In his peripheral vision, he could see Sergeant Leon Meyer pacing like a caged lion. The older man's brow furrowed, his closely cropped hair flecked with dirt and sweat, giving him a visage of stern authority. He was beloved by his men, but even now, hints of uncertainty creased his weathered features. He had led them through hellish days in combat, but this evening was different. "Somebody's got to take out that machine gun nest ahead," he said quietly but urgently, his voice barely rising above the chilling wind that whistled through the trees. He glanced around at the faces of his squad, bodies hardened, spirits shaken, all too aware of the dangers that loomed just out of sight. "Dawson, you take point," he said, looking straight at Jimmy. "I need you to move fast, hit them before they know what's coming." The words hit Jimmy like a lead weight. He hadn't enlisted to die, to lead others into certain peril. "Sarge, I'm not sure I'm ready," he choked out, fear gnawing at the edges of his resolve. "None of us are ready," Leon replied flatly. "But this isn't about being ready, it's about doing what must be done." There was a fierce determination in Leon's voice, a fire that ignited something deep inside Jimmy, drawing him to rise once again to the call despite the dread welling within him. All around, the squad's eyes reflected a mess of emotions: dread, familiarity, and the shared bond of soldiers, each knowing that at any moment, one of them could be turned into a cold statistic, swallowed by the horrors of war. It was a cruel paradox where decisions mattered not only for their lives but for the dreams they had abandoned to don uniforms. The squad exchanged tense glances. Each person had their reasons for fighting, simple dreams twisted into complexities by the iron grip of war. For Tony "Red" Rodriguez, the young Hispanic man with a mischievous smile that often cloaked his heartache, it was a chance to return to his family in Texas. For Betty "Buck" Walker, the only woman in the unit, it was a pursuit of dignity, fighting for her right alongside her brothers. On this dusky evening, as overcast skies threatened rain, they all understood that fear and bravery danced hand in hand in this cruel theater of existence. "All right, we do this together, rain or shine," Leon said, voice booming as the creeping dread hung thick in the air. "Keep your heads low and your weapons ready." The squad split into two groups, gathering their gear and moving in a low crouch towards the suspected enemy position. Every rustle of leaves, every broken twig beneath their boots seemed amplified, a precursor to their impending confrontation. Jimmy's heart raced, his mind aflame with thoughts of home, his mother's comforting touch, flickering memories of laughter, and his younger sister's spirited antics. He clung to those shards of normality, burying the inkling that he might never see them again. The advance felt eternal, each moment tinged with dread, yet it propelled them forward like marionettes called to a dance. They inched closer to the German-held territory, their silhouettes contrasting with the darkening sky as day seeped into twilight. The air grew dense with ominous energy, building toward an explosion, both literally and metaphorically. In half-formed whispers, the men exchanged nervous quips, trying to lighten the atmosphere, though humor felt desperately hollow in this unforgiving landscape. Just as they rounded the last hedgerow, an explosion shattered their fragile facade of camaraderie, sending shrapnel flying and the screams of comrades adding to the chorus of despair. "Get down," someone shouted, but the order seemed muted against reality. Suddenly, chaos erupted like a tempest. Tracer bullets shot past, dazzling streaks of light that reminded Jimmy of sparklers he had played with as a child, mockingly tranquil against the maelstrom around him. One by one, soldiers fell. Some crashed to the ground without so much as a sound. Others cried out in agony before silence enveloped them. Through the swirling maelstrom of sounds, he noticed Leon moving in and out of the chaos, issuing commands, his voice a calm anchor in the storm. "Move forward. We need to suppress their fire," he called, desperation seeping into his resolve as bodies fell around them. Jimmy fought through the fog of fear pressing upon him, pulling courage from the depths of despair. Instinct kicked in, and he pushed onward, firing his weapon at the German position amidst the shrieks and the ricochets, all the while feeling the weight of warp-speed destinies hanging in the air. Bullets sang around him, a deadly melody, reinforcing fragile lines between life and death as he took aim, his heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of combat. A deafening blast erupted nearby. The world tilted, an explosion of sound and fury that sent him sprawling into a quagmire. Screams filled his ears, blending with the relentless rattle of bullets, weaving a tapestry of violence too vivid to be real. He pushed himself up, dazed and breathless, splattered with mud and the essence of warfare, only to see Leon clashing with their foes, dodging and weaving like a man possessed. In that split second, something changed within him. He screamed a battle cry that poured out of him. It was primal, untouched by fear. With newfound determination, he launched himself towards the enemy, firing the M1 Garand, bullets flying, slicing through cotton-laden shadows, claiming the darkness, a rage ignited by the possibility of survival. "Jimmy, watch it," Leon called, but his words were too late. A flash of enemy fire descended in a tumultuous barrage, and Jimmy felt the bite of his first wound, a searing, fiery pain in his shoulder that sent shockwaves down his spine, forcing him to the ground. He gritted his teeth, willing himself to remain conscious, refusing to succumb to the darkness clawing at the edges of his vision. With his weapon clutched tightly in hand, he crawled through the mud, relentless in his pursuit of purpose, refusing to yield. Somewhere amidst the cacophony, he could hear Leon shouting orders, the high-pitched rattling of gunfire mingling seamlessly with the echoes of men's last moments. In a remarkable act of courage, Leon plunged into enemy territory, taking heavy fire but rallying the squad behind him. He charged through the lines, shouting, "Press the attack, don't give up." His voice was a clarion call, a symbol of hope igniting embers of bravery in their wavering hearts. Watching his sergeant, a man he'd admired for his strength, propelled him upward, driving him through the pain that threatened his very existence. "For my family," he gasped, moving towards Leon's fray, pulling the trigger without even thinking, engulfed in the boiling tumult of battle. The hours blurred into a reality defined only by survival and sacrifice. For every soldier who fell, every burst of sound signified a cruel reminder that the stakes had never been higher. They pressed forward, seized control of the enemy position, pushing relentlessly until finally silence enveloped them, muffled and hollow, save for the gasps of the wounded. As dusk settled over the battleground, the reality of loss seeped into the cool night air, an unyielding truth. Limbs lay scattered, remnants of lives abruptly severed, and silence spoke volumes, every shadow haunting, every memory alive with echoes of what had been. Leon found Jimmy near the battlefield, collapsed on the muddy ground, the glow of dusk painting his face with shadows. He knelt beside him, blood soaking through his uniform. "You did good, son," he said, though his voice trembled slightly. For a moment, the horrors of war receded just enough to allow a flicker of pride to shine through. "I couldn't save them, Sarge," Jimmy whispered, the weight of loss crushing him. "I tried. They knew what they signed up for," Leon murmured, his eyes reflecting tribulation. "You fought bravely, that's all we can do. You fought for every single one of them." The evening deepened, and the unit slowly reconvened, dragging limbs and hearts weighed down with the enormity of their experiences. They gathered around the impromptu camp, and Leon stood to address them, his presence forged from suffering, yet molded by the courage they had maintained through unimaginable odds. "This isn't just a fight for survival," he said, voice firm. "This is about them, both the ones we've lost and those waiting for us at home. We owe it to them to carry on." They sat in silence, the reverberations of conflict still echoing in their ears, yet painted in hues of brotherhood and fidelity. As dusk darkened, they took stock of what remained, an emerging respect birthed through shared trauma, a heartbreaking understanding of the fragility of life. Each small victory had cost them something precious. Jimmy gazed at the horizon, the skies heavy with bruised colors of a dying day, echoed by the fires of hope in his heart. Though the battle was fraught with loss and heartbreak, he had discovered the strength to carry the memory of those who never made it home. And even amid the chaos and pain, every heartbeat was now a dedication to them. Underneath this star-studded night, a promise ignited, a promise to honor those who had fallen, a vow woven through the shared burden of scars that only they would know in the tapestry of their lives. And as he closed his eyes, he murmured silent prayers for his comrades, breathing their names into the night, swearing to carry their memories into whatever dawn awaited. Days turned into weeks, the battles unfolded like shattered glass, scattered across horizons, and yet Jimmy and the men pushed onward through their grief, patching themselves up with remnants of hope, driven by survival amidst the wreckage of war, the fierce manifestation of human resolve beneath an unforgiving world. In the end, they learned that life continued, even when survival felt like a fragile illusion, and they had each other to lean on the long road home, a journey that, borne by experience, would eternally forge connections, not just in arms, the bonds forged in combat, heartache, and ultimately humanity. As they continued forward, the ghosts of the past lingered, but they now walked with firm steps, brimming with gratitude for the lessons learned in the shadows of war, a testament that courage lives on, even in the darkest of times. Bound together by anguish but propelled by unwavering hope, they moved with purpose. Beneath every star illuminating the night, a fresh world awaited, one that whispered the promise of tomorrow.